because sometimes you have to have fun and just do something a little bit different. And yes, there is a way to speed reload a lever gun. You just got to make sure you hold your mouth right. All right, so why would you want to do something like this Henry Mad Pig Midwest Industries like lever action build? Well, one, because why not? If you want to do it and you think it's cool, go ahead and do it. But another thing to take into account is largely lever action setups like this are far less regulated than many other things out there in the market, especially in highly restrictive states. And if you've never seen any of those cowboy competitions, you can actually be extremely fast and accurate with these things. Now, I don't know about you, but now one of my biggest fears in life is going to be getting drilled by a 14-year-old cowboy kid with a lever action and a wheel gun, especially at that rate of fire. Let's tackle what I put on this thing before we talk about the actual build. So for the optic, I ran a Holosun AEMS or AIMS on this one because for some odd reason, that boxy look just seemed to instantly fit. When I kind of was putting different optics on there, I was like, that one actually looks pretty cool. I think it has something to do with the square lines and the boxiness of that like action and the housing up there. Just looks pretty cool. And then I ran the ODA switch on here from HRT. So it's got this omnidirectional thing. It's kind of the dingle dongle switch that you need in your life. Super powerful, great lights. I'm good friends with those people, but it just gives you one less point of failure, right? Some people love pressure pads, some people don't. This one takes that away. You just use this up here and you're gonna be pretty much good to go. You can deactivate it by turning either the tail cap or the head a little bit and make sure your batteries don't drain for storage. And then I don't have it on right now, but I did run that AB can on there, which is kind of fun. I call it the tactically ribbed for your pleasure suppressor, and I will be doing kind of a full review on those. I've come to like them. If you're interested in that, that'll be real soon. As far as the rest of this rifle, as you can see, there is nothing really that looks factory from Henry. This is the Big Boy X model, but there's just a ton of different stuff on here. Like I said, this was like a collaboration between Henry, Mad Pig, and Midwest Industries, who supplied all the parts and everything on there and kind of made that thing as cool as it is. Now, I wanted one of these because when I was a kid growing up, my old man had a bunch of the old like Model 94s that were like 70 years old. And I remember how cool it was to just, work that action and take a shot. And I thought it was just a ton of fun as a kid. So they did build a few of these. They sent them out to different people that do YouTube videos. And quite honestly, I jumped at the chance because nostalgia wise, I really wanted one in kind of like an updated configuration because it reminds me of childhood and having good times and things that were just a little bit more pure back in the day. But this thing did start its life as a Henry Big Boy X in the 357-38 with a 7+1 capacity because you can +1 a lever gun. If you guys didn't know, yes, you can +1 your lever gun. Load up, take that additional shell, and just get her in there like that. And as you can tell by having seen it, it's got just about every part I think that Midwest Industries actually makes for it. And then Mad Pig did the paint job assembly and all the custom work on it, which just turned out like prime. As far as the Midwest Industries stuff on this thing, starting from the back there, it's gonna have the Midwest Industries lock lever stock. It's gonna have that extended butt pad on there, make it a little bit more comfortable to shoot. It'll have universal shell holders on there so you can hold that cool, nice looking ammunition, like that barn stuff that's in there. An enhanced cheek riser on there for your cheek weld. You can rise it up and down as needed, depending on your optic of choice. Henry G10 grips, an enhanced takedown lever screw. You're gonna get that rail with the sights integrated into it, and you're just gonna have a ton of M-LOK in there. It is robust. It is super secure, and you get pick rail all the way across the top with this thing, and that is just super cool. And it does still retain your traditional sling point. Say you want to run like that traditional hunting style sling, you can do that as well, even though since you've got M-LOK and QD cups in the rear, you can run a modern sling just putting like a QD attachment up in the front of that M-LOK. Now, after all of those parts, Mad Pig Customs did the actual build on this thing and the paint job on there. And I have to say, I am an absolute simp for the tiger stripe stuff. I don't know why. It's just one of those patterns that ever since I was a wee young lad has stuck with me. And every time I look at something in tiger, whether it's like either desert or jungle, it just seems to call my name and I almost have to buy whatever it is. Now, besides the actual custom coat and the build, obviously on this by Mad Pig, almost everything you're gonna see on this is available over at Brownells. I'm pretty sure almost all of it is. And I'll have all of that stuff in a build list. That'll be the first link in the description down below, so you can do all of your own research. Check out every individual piece and see if anything would be for you, including the optics and all the rest of that stuff, along with plenty of other things. And if you should be man enough to be watching this in your break room, at your employer, casting it to the TV in the break room, I'll put a QR code up here so you can scan that and check out the parts. But seriously, if you're gonna do that, be very safe to make sure that your employer is 2A friendly. Now, out on the range with this thing, I had just an absolutely fun and good time because not everything has to be so serious out there. You can have things and take things out there to the range just to have a good time and fun with, right? Remember, we don't always have to be like dialed in and serious. I'm not saying don't be safe, but have fun out there. I mostly ran this Barnes Vortex ammunition right there because Barnes is just great stuff. I use a ton of their ammunition in my precision and my personal hunting rigs. So I have come to trust that ammo to the absolute extreme degree because they also make a ton of like actual components for loading and supplies and all that. So really good stuff there. And it all performed flawlessly, but I didn't really expect to have any issues here because on these mechanical systems like this, as long as they were built right and they're being maintained, you're probably never gonna have an issue until you come to the end of a part's life. So I didn't expect to have any issues. But of course the Barnes did perform flawlessly. I did try some other ammunition out there, more of your plinking style stuff in 357 and 38. All of it ran flawlessly. In fact, I kind of wanted to see how that can was gonna sound on there. So I did take the Ear Pro out and I did run just one round to see what it was. And it was actually pretty quiet for what it is. All right, that's the AB F4 suppressor. It's ribbed for your tactical lever gun pleasure. We're just gonna throw a round in there and we're gonna see how loud it is, but you can run, you know, the 38 stuff through a 9mm can. That's actually pretty quiet. Everyone always gets a kick when I throw those AB suppressors in there and I say ribbed for your tactical pleasure, because that's just kind of what I think of when I look at it. But it's pretty cool that AB actually leans into that. They like to have fun too. And I think that's really cool that a company kind of appreciates when people can have fun and like their product. So again, I'm gonna be doing more with AB, really cool stuff, but just a good time when you can run a tactically ribbed for your pleasure suppressor. There's really not much more I can say about the actual performance of the rifle besides the thing performed 100%. I got a few hundred rounds through it, right? It's a lever gun. We're not gonna be doing crazy burn down videos with this thing. But everything just worked. All of the custom components just seem to be very nice, extremely solid. Nothing came loose, nothing came apart. I just had an absolutely great time, as you can probably tell by the smile on my face, because there was a lot of nostalgia in this. And it's something that I wanted because, again, I just wanted something cool, something that I can have and keep, because this is definitely staying in my collection. And I think we need to remind ourselves of that once in a while, just to have some fun. Now, as far as what I did with it out there on the range, I did try to push the limits a little bit, right? I did a little try to speed reload from my mouth. I was doing some build drills. I did some transitions. I did some Mozambique drills, all the stuff that I would normally do with a gasser gun. And although, of course, it's not going to be as fast as something like that, remember, there are those cowboy kids out there, and I would not want to take the test of, oh, I can outrun it, especially standing in front of somebody like that. Now, because I know somebody's gonna ask or say in the comments, why would you actually build that thing like that or do all those things to it? Again, why not? It's just fun and it's cool and nostalgic. But think about it this way. For those severely restrictive states out there, lever guns are far less regulated than, say, an AR. In fact, in some states, it's almost impossible to get a true AR. And if you can get one, it's generally so neutered that it's not even the same way of functioning, right? If you're following the law. But when you go into something like this, it's far less regulated. So you can have all the cool stuff you want, do all the cool things you want to do, and kind of have something that you can actually enjoy out there without having to worry about button takedown, magazine release things, and all the weird stuff that cities and states make people do to own certain firearms, none of which I agree with, but that's unfortunately what we are dealing with. Now, there are several other companies that are making things like this out there that take magazines and they're based on lever actions and whatever. And that's all cool stuff because it services people that maybe can't get something that all of the rest of us can. But Henry's just been in the game a very long time. They make really cool stuff and they're just one of the big players in the game. So I was happy to have a more traditional build rather than a kind of magazine fed looking thing. So if you were to choose something like this and put all of these parts on it, there are a couple of ways you could go about it. You can mount a scope on here and use it as a really cool lever action hunting rig. That's actually really popular still. But is it a viable defense setup? I would say yes, especially if you want to be the tactical cowboy and you can run that thing like that 14-year-old kid. But I do think it is a viable option for something like that, especially when you have an optic to make that sight acquisition and target picture just a little bit easier and faster. That light, so you can do some positive target identification. I think lights are generally always a level up if used appropriately. And then of course, since you've got all the rest of the M-LOK in the world, you can put a PEC 15 night vision device, thermal, whatever you want on there and just go to town and have a good time. And I'm sure your girl would love seeing you roll around the house in your helmet with a lever gun, wearing just your boots. Now, I normally don't do the rate guns on like a 1 to 10 scale or something, but like Billy Bob once said in Varsity Blues,
I give it a 10, a fucking 10. Gentlemen.
Now, why do I think it's a 10? Because it's fun. It's nostalgic. It ran like a champ. All the Midwest Industries parts were awesome. Mad Pig killed it on the custom paint and the build. Overall, everything turned out very nice. And it functioned flawlessly, which is what I was expecting, especially with the Barnes ammunition. And Henry has a really good reputation out there in the industry. It's also got less regulations and you can use it for a hunting rig or a defensive thing should your state not allow you to have really cool stuff. Because you all know and expect that nobody gets a free pass here on the channel, did anything go wrong? Are there things that you need to know about a lever action, right? Like this Henry X here? Yes, there is. I didn't have any problems, but some of you, in fact, many of you may not know, there's no safety on this thing, right? So once you work that lever and that thing is in action, ready to roll, you pull the trigger and you go. However, inside of here, there is a lever bar system, which is the safety. So mechanically, the hammer can't strike the firing pin until you actually pull on that trigger. Now, some people do ride that hammer down like that. If you do, you need to be extremely careful when you do that. And then you have to obviously put it back if you want to fire it or work the action or run on an empty chamber, if that's your thing. Me, I like them hot. I keep them hot and I keep the hammer back because if you're running this, you should know these safety mechanisms on there. But I don't think that's a big issue once you know about it. Now, if you do want to run this for a defensive rig, it's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of ammo, dry fire practice, and all those things because since it is so different, you've got to spend the time with it to be efficient, to be fast, and of course to be accurate because when you're holding this thing out there and you're working that lever, that's a lot more movement and action than a traditional gas rig system. When it comes to reload drills, you're not doing any crazy sub-second reloads on there, at least I can't. Maybe some of those Cowboy Kings out there can, but those are just things to take into account. And the last thing I'll say about things that you probably need to know is 357 and 38 are generally not the cheapest forms of ammo. Even the plinking stuff is a little bit more expensive than 9.45, whatever. Not terribly, but that's definitely something to take into account, especially when you get into that really nice Barnes self-defense or hunting style stuff. So you're gonna have a little bit more money in it. But again, we're not doing 500 round burn downs here on these things, people. These are those cool, like take it out once a month on a Sunday hot rod kind of things where you just kind of go out there, have some fun, show your friends this thing, let them have some fun working that action, go home, clean it up, lube it up, put it back in the safe, and wait till next month. Make sure you guys get subbed up to the channel, check out that parts list, and always remember, if you stay ready, you ain't gotta get ready. I will see you all on the next one.